Paul, thank you very much for coming in. Is it a flying visit to the UK?
Yeah.
Oh, hang on, I need to put your mic up. That's
Hello, testing.
A rudimentary error there. Apologies.
Can I get a little bit more in my cans?
Can you hear anything at all in those?
No.
Oh, sorry about that. I don't know if I will be able to get...
Then don't worry, I don't need the cans at all.
Okay, so yeah, you're in the UK for how long?
Just, I leave tomorrow first thing. I've only been here since yesterday, I think.
Okay.
Is that right? Yeah, 2 nights. 2 nights.
Okay,
in and out.
And where are you off to next?
Belgium.
Okay.
Yeah.
So doing the so first of all, I mean, I guess it would make sense to start with how, if you could explain roughly, in a nutshell, in a quick way, how the Julian Plenti project came about.
Well, it's been something I've been doing for years. It's some of the material on the record dates back to the late 90s when I originally wrote it, and I used to play out in like 2001 under that name. That was just sort of, the stage name. So when I came about, like I never really went all the way with a lot of the material that I've been working on over the years because I was busy, and then I was really just sort of almost a neo-folk artist is how I looked at it. It was just me and an acoustic guitar. And I never got around to making a record until I sort of started working with Logic, which is a software, music software production program. And that kind of allowed me to orchestrate like full songs and play drum beats and have bass lines and string orchestrations and horns and all the things that I would hear in my head around pieces that I had, but I don't play any of those instruments, so I didn't really have any recourse to do it. So for me, it was just really liberating to work with that program, and so I demoed all these. I took kind of that, working within that program inspired a lot of new material, like the song you just heard, started with me goofing around with a beat and a bass line in Logic, and then I built it up around that. But typically I would start with guitar, but just it would end up just me and an acoustic, and so then I took some of this old material that I had and kind of put it through the filter of what I learned how to do in Logic and orchestrated it into a full band sound and generated a full record. So it's really it's something I've intended to do for many years, but I could never do it to my satisfaction until I became fluid enough.
Proficient in Logic.
Proficient with Logic, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you kind of had to teach yourself the equipment first before you actually... Do you feel that that's fully realised now, or do you think there's a lot of stuff that... Have you got more songs that you want to bring in that you feel you haven't quite mastered enough
I have tons of material, but it's not even... I never can apply myself. I never have the attention to learn anything in particular. Like, I never really learned the guitar. I never sat down to learn it. It's just from love of playing, and by being gravitated towards a guitar to make it do things, that's how I learned. And the same with Logic. It wasn't that I didn't sit down and say, I want to learn this program. It's that once I got my feet wet, then it just led to new ideas, and then you learn by enthusiasm rather than sitting down to study how to work something. So I actually know Logic in a really backwards personal way, and I use it in totally incorrect ways, actually, that someone who's really technical would never use the program the way I do, because it's really redundant and disorganized how I work.
It's a more organic way.
It's organic, and it's just how I work, so I can't actually say that I'm a geek or that that I know everything about that program.
Okay.
But yeah, with or without it, actually, there's tons of Julian Plenti stuff from years past that I didn't put on the record, and then I'm still writing. So yeah, there'll be more.
So where was the line between the music that you wrote that you felt would work as Julian Plenti and the music that might work as part of Interpol? Was there when do you know that which project is going to be suitable?
Well, that line is not so much up to me. In the band, I'm the singer. So it's not, I don't write the songs.
Okay, so you've never taken these to the table as part of Interpol and said, hey, look, I've got these songs, what do you think?
Getting into some hairy terrain. I have submitted songs, yes.
Okay.
But that's not how the band works.
Right,
I do the lyrics. That's my job.
Right, okay. So, I mean, lyrically, how would you say this album and this music differs from what you've written for Interpol?
I don't look at any difference, really. I think I respond to the music. What attracted me to be in Interpol was that I really loved the stuff that Daniel and Carlos were working on, and I just felt gravitated to write guitar parts and melodies come to mind. And then I think it's just, I like writing lyrics. I write when I'm not in a band, they just kind of come. So but in all cases, I think music comes first. With my solo stuff, it's rare that I'll have a lyric and I'll want to build a song out of a lyric. And they're usually really inappropriate lyrics. Like I have one now that I don't know if I'll ever do, but...
well, now I obviously want to hear it.
I can't say it, no, because it's so inappropriate. Like, it's really, pushing the lines of PC. But it really almost always comes from the music first and then the lyric. So in all cases, it's really the song tells me what to do in a way. You know,
Right.
I don't have an agenda, and I don't differentiate between bands. It's really per song, you know.
Okay.
So,
Well,
yeah.
shall we hear some music from the album? I guess that would make sense. I want to play Skyscraper first. Is that okay?
Yeah.
What can you tell us about Skyscraper?
The title track.
Yeah.
That's a really recent song that I did that it's really, you know, the whole record is very indulgent, and it's that song is a good example of just me almost taking things like ideas that come to me unconsciously, and it's like practice of meditation almost applied to art, where it's like with no second guessing, almost just kind of almost tapping into like a dream perspective and just letting that be. Whereas if you're in a band and you say, hey, you know, I have this idea to record women playing tennis, and I want to put it in the song for the tonal quality, for the strangeness of it, and because it'll lend to the percussive track. So I'm going to do that, guy. You know, like a band would be like, you're crazy. Absolutely not. But this track, you know, there's a whole section where there's actually, that's literally a recording of two women playing tennis that,
Really?
that kicks in at a certain point. And so what you might think is a kick drum is actually the sound of a tennis ball on a racket. And then those female voices are women aggressively hitting forehands back to each other. And then there's some other crazy stuff that goes on, and I just kind of like whatever I felt like doing, I did. And so this is a good example of just how indulgent I got with the record.
Okay, well, listen out for the female grunters playing tennis. This is Julian Plenti on XFM Exposure with Skyscraper. That is Julian Plenti on XFM Exposure. The album is out now. It's called Julian Plenti is Skyscraper, and that is the title track, well, Skyscraper, from the album. And did you hear the grunting female tennis players or not? We were enjoying listening to them in the studio, possibly too much, but yeah, thanks, Paul, for pointing out that kind of insider information.
Oh yeah, there's tons of fun samples on the record.
Yes, as we were just discussing.
Yes.
So the album, I would say, I don't know, would you say it's fair to say that it's got sort of two sides to it, more delicate kind of acoustic-based stuff that we heard there with samples in it, and then more beat-based traditional sort of song structures? I don't know, I guess it's best for you to describe how the album...
No, I mean, I think it's actually, it's not. It's hard for me to categorize too much within music, because I think I'm almost always fearful that it comes off unintelligible when the artist speaks about their own work, because it's so, you know, I view it so in such an abstract way that sometimes I think a critical perspective is good. Sometimes when the critic is totally wrong, it's bad. But for me, it's not. I don't really distinguish. It's like at any given song that I'm working on, again, it just, they have their own life. Like as soon as you get a melody, that melody starts to build itself out, and you just have to pay attention to what it's asking for. And the same thing goes on the larger scale of like the personality of the song. So it's like, does this song need a beat? You know, that question will come up, but kind of answer itself. You know, like, so the rockers are rockers because that's what they were destined to be, and the other songs that are more atmospheric or more moody or more acoustic based, it's just because that's what I thought that they should become, and that's kind of what they told me to be.
Okay, I mean, would you say that there's more depth and textures that I guess what you would find on an Interpol album, or things that you've done in the past? So would you say that they're, I don't know, it sounds a lot more intimate than a lot of Interpol stuff. I mean, a lot of the earlier Interpol stuff drenched in reverb with that huge sort of cavernous sound, and this with a more close effect. Would you agree with that? I mean,
Yeah. Well, no, but that's, I mean, there was something about the reverb of early stuff where we kind of, that was being green. That was working with somebody who likened us to a period in time and mimicked, you know, there was some aspect of some reverb that was sort of put on that didn't know better to say, like, that's the thing that I'm not identifying with right here. The band wound up remixing a lot of the first record.
Okay.
Actually, Daniel and I went in and corrected. So there's a lot of the songs on the first record which have a much more immediate garage rock feel and are not drenched in reverb, and those are the ones that we went back and had time to correct, because we weren't going for a certain drench it all in reverb. That wasn't my individual intention whatsoever. I didn't really even relate. Granted, it's very atmospheric and moody, but that particular thing, I think, is not an approach. There's a lot of things you do, I think, where you know how you want to sound when you're playing live, but you really need to learn how to make records. And I think when you're first starting out, if you work with somebody who comes in as a mixer or a producer, they may have a different aesthetic, and if you don't know better, you know, some things can happen that may not have been what you intended. So now I've made enough records to know what I'm going for, but I wouldn't say there's any more depth here. I think that what the band does is probably all in all has more going on musically.